What we're going to talk about tonight is you're going to find out. I don't care who's out there saying that the bond. There's too many people. We was on the radio last night and people called in. The bonds are working. Man had 5 tickets. He sent a bond on 2 of them. He is testing it. Left the 3 out. He got a warrant on the 3 that he didn't give a bond on. So these things are working, and they're working good, and I'll tell you where they're coming from. All these years, we have struggled and struggled, and I know everybody has talked about writ of habeas corpus, and they never could get one of them to work. And the reason is we're giving them to the wrong person in the court. Everybody either wants to give it to a judge, wants to give it to the sheriff. Who is the order of the court given to in the court? The bailiff. The bailiff is the one that gets the judgment, and he's the one that enforces the judgment, and he's the one, if you'll study the law merchants. You remember I gave you that big, thick thing on the law merchants. What your courts are set up like is law merchant courts. They elected a judge at those things, and they were all the cotton merchants set up their own court. They would elect their judge for 1 year. They elected 2 bailiffs for a lifetime. And the reason was it was the bailiffs who took the people out of the court after they got through and would take them down to the King's jail and set them in the King's jail until they agreed to pay or until they paid what they were supposed to. This is what it's all about. And when we get into this, you'll see that we're starting to notice now the bailiff in all of the courts and so forth, and I think you're going to start getting different answers and things. If you'll notice in the judges' chambers when they call a sidebar, and they all sneak up to the front, who's standing right behind them listening in on the whole conversation? The bailiff. The bailiff is the most important guy in the court because the judgment is given to him and he enforces the judgment. He takes you into custody, and that's what the judge says, bailiff, take him into custody and put him in jail. And this is what has happened to us. So we've been addressing the wrong person. It hit me down in Houston, this thing of the bailiff. What you're going to find out is everything I've been teaching you is in the probate statutes. It's not something that I knew before I went to Houston, but a man down there had read these things, and he sat over there and he said, see here, that's exactly what he's saying is right. Look here, it's right here in the statute. What the probate statutes teach you is that until you're 21 years old, they have what they consider you are an incompetent person. And they do that because you have a birth certificate and they've placed a bond on it. Now, if you go to college, it says they add 4 more years to that. So until you're 25, you're an incompetent person. Now, the issue in all of this is legal determination. It all goes back to that term that I keep telling you. No one can make a legal determination for you. So the issue always is they are trying to make you incompetent. And you get an attorney, or if you go to someone and ask their opinion, you become an incompetent person. Do not ever quote statutes to them. Do not ever take their form of the court and use that form to answer them. If that court is not your court, why are you using their form? And you simply give jurisdiction to them when you do it. Sit down and write them a letter. Dear Judge, I noticed this came, you gave this to me, I'm going to accept it. And I'm going to return it to you for closure and discharge of this matter. Courts, those are not your courts. They're not courts. They're simply chambers. When we get this down, you're going to start becoming free. I just had a meeting with a man a while ago, and he said, but you don't understand. Look what it says in the letter. I said, I don't care what it says in the letter. Don't you understand it? If you're going to accept it, why would you care what it says? I'm going to accept it. Why? We get into this thing, and everything I'm telling you is in the UCC law, which is what they're using. But I don't give you the UCC law. You have to internalize itself in what I'm telling you, in yourself. You have to testify from yourself, not from codes, rules, and regulations. The instant you bring a code or a rule or regulation in, you're citing them, their codes, their rules, their regulations. You've brought a third party in, and immediately you've become incompetent. Don't use them. Use what is inside of you. What am I saying in all of this? You are a sovereign, and they know you're a sovereign. The country was set up that way. The sovereignty issue was given by King George to every person who was that's what the treaty in Paris was about. He gave the sovereignty to every person living in this country and to anyone who would be born here or would come from another country. That's what the treaty says. So the experiment with this country was to see if people could live as kings and queens. And then what they wanted to do is to trick, to put out there little tricks and things to see if they could take your sovereignty away. And this is what they do. No one has the right to make a legal determination for you. No one. And what it is in this matter, it includes the bonds, it includes everything else. No one has a right to come to you and tell you that the bonds you wrote is no good. You're the one that determined that. You wrote it and you signed it. Who can come to you and tell you that they're no good? By what authority are they coming? Anyone who would come to you and tell you they're no good is what? Coming from a different venue and a different jurisdiction than what you're in. They are agents. You look at the definition of an agent, it's a representative, or it's someone from a foreign country who is in another nation, and they're simply foreign to the venue and jurisdiction of that country and foreign to the venue and jurisdiction of the people. Otherwise, they wouldn't be an agent, would they? They'd be one of we the people. An agent is somebody who has sneaked in here, and they came in through what is called the Bretton-Woods Agreement. The Bretton-Woods Agreement in about 1947 allowed the IRS, that's when the thing IRS, you saw a little bit about it beforehand, but in 1947 the IRS, FBI, CIA, all of those three-digit organizations, not a one of them there has ever a bill been created that created these agencies into law. They could not be because the Constitution totally forbids it. FBI, CIA, DEA, all of these people simply work for the Vatican. They go around the world, changing governments out, doing what in other words, they go into, you always see a CIA involved in the downfall of another government, don't you? They're always there. You always see where the FBI comes in. How did the FBI become our friend? It started with the Lindbergh case, and they started trying to tell people there, well, we're your friends. Well, somebody goes across the border, and we'll go get them. And so people started listening to them, and they started coming with these things on television. The FBI in peace and war. The FBI is an extension of the Vatican. The CIA is an extension of the Vatican. They work for the Jesuits, that arm of the Vatican. And I am not calling the Catholic Church bad or anything else. I'm not saying that at all. People make up churches. And so not all people in those things, just like not all Baptists are bad, not all things, but some of all of them are. So, otherwise there wouldn't be 900 different branches of churches, would it? So anyway, what I'm telling you is that the bonds, these become they're also in the probate statutes. They're also in the IRS statutes. And the IRS statute says that they will accept a bond. There are other things that readily they accept bonds with the IRS. They have not had one to come back and say, we're not going to take your bond. Not that I know of. Have not had one to come back from the taxing, your property taxes. And now that you're starting to get your appraisals, pay attention to what they're doing. What does the appraisal say on your property taxes? It's not a bill, and do not pay this. What they're saying is, accept this, and then later down the road, we're going to send you a bill. It's an offer of contract. And at that point, all you have to do is write across it, accept it, and return for closure. Where does that come from? Accepted and returned for closure. Do you realize that in the UCC, when someone gives you something, everything has to be given? Give me your name. Isn't that what the judge says? Give me your name. Why? You have to give him your name before he can do anything with it. Once you give it to him, it's his. He can do whatever he wants to with it. When you give me something and I accept it, it's no longer yours, is it? Otherwise, you'd loan it to me, wouldn't you? And that's what one of the women told the judge in court. I can't give you my name. I can loan it to you, but I can't give it to you. You see, he would have to give it back to her then. And so what happens is, these things come out from these tax assessor collectors. And they say, here's an offer. And I had a guy to tell me, CPA, no doubt. And he said, I said, what do you do with that when he comes? He said, I just throw it over in the corner. And I said, you're a CPA and you don't know what that is? Well, no, I never thought of it. And I said, that is an offer of contract. And what you do is there's 2 or 3 ways you can handle those. At the first of the year, go down to the tax assessor collector and render your property for taxation for $1 silver dollar or for 1 gold piece. And that's all they can tax you. You see, because we don't render it, then they send you this tax assessor collector. It's been found that your property is worth this much. Well, if that was true, why can you go down and argue with them and get it reduced? See, it is a trick they're playing on us. And so what you do is you take that and say, accepted and returned for closure and discharge in this matter. And then you tell them equality, and this is so important I can't tell you how important this is. Equality under the law is paramount. And this is what happened in the case in Fort Worth. I told you about the man, they come out and raided his house and took him downtown. When we answered that summons they did, what I did, and I had not a clue. Good Lord has a way of putting stuff in your head that you don't know what you're talking about. But what I did is I told that attorney, that District Snipes, the federal attorney over here in Dallas, I said, equality under the law is paramount. And whatever you're requiring this person to do, you have to do. And that's exactly what it says in the probate statutes. Equality under the law is paramount. And from that point on, you have to say, I am competent to handle this matter. And I hereby fire, and you name them all. If they've brought you into a judge or whatever, the judge, you fire him by name. The clerk, the bailiff, the sheriff's deputies, anybody that has had anything to do with this, you fire them by name. And then you say, and I hereby declare these people are incompetent. You see, you have the right to do that. It is your right. And so We get so involved sometimes in what they're saying to us. Why do you think in court you can't think of what to say when it comes your turn to speak? Because you've been listening to them trying to figure out what they're saying and what am I going to say when they get through? How am I going to answer them? When you should be sitting there as a sovereign thinking of what you're going to say. You don't care what they are going to say. They're going to say a lot of things, and probably none of them are true. And so what you've got to understand is it's up to you to think and to say for yourself. Nobody else in a republic can speak for you. You speak for yourself. You become who you are. You ever notice that? Who created anyone to have authority over somebody else? There's only one authority in the world. It's the Creator. And whatever He created, He has authority over it. Now, what do you have authority over? All of the corporations that have been created. Because they come out of this thing called government. You have authority over that because you created it. We forget sometimes how you create a state and add it to the other states. And very fortunate, he's not here tonight, but the man did research and he wrote the most, and it really opened my eyes as to what this was all about. The people are never included in the government. They created the government. And it says in there that when enough people get together and they say, hey, we want to form this state of New Mexico, we'll steal part of Texas territory. But anyway, that's another thing. And so they say, okay, and so enough of them get together and they petition, the state of New Mexico petitions Washington or the United States to bring them in as a state. But the people are never connected to either one of them. The people simply sit in their counties where they are, and they say, y'all handle all this stuff between the state and the federal. Get us in as a state, y'all handle all that stuff, leave us alone. And this is the way it's supposed to be. You're never part of that government. You are the government. The government is we the people. Don't care if you live in Texas, you live in the United States. We the people are the government. And that's where you have to come from. Anything they write to you, isn't it good now that you don't have to worry about what they're writing to you? You know what? In that, whatever they're writing to you, that is a summary judgment. Comes in through what is called law merchants. That's a summary judgment. If you try to contest it, they have a summary judgment on you. Why? Now you've got to prove you didn't intend to do what they said in the letter. How do you prove you can't that you didn't do something? Policeman says you ran a red light. How do you prove you didn't intend to do that? So isn't it a lot better to say, hey, I'll accept that? Man went into federal court, and so help me, they went in there and they was going to throw him under the jail because he hadn't filed tax forms in years. And he went in there and the court opened and he said, you're exactly right. He said, I haven't filed in 30 years. And he said, and so there's no sense. In other words, I agree with you. There's nothing to argue over here. And the case just went away. If there's no argument, how in the world do you have a case? Why do you think attorneys go to school and are taught how to argue? That's all they're taught is how to argue. Debate, argue. Why? They want to get you into it. Get you into an argument, and then what happens? They got 60 million rules and regulations they can throw at you. And you're sitting there saying, which one of those don't I know? And they throw a statute out at you, and you start reading it, and you say, see, when you bring it, okay, I know every one of you's probably at one time or another argued religion with somebody. And you're arguing fast and furious, and things are, not really coming to any sense, but all of a sudden, boy, here you throw a verse at him out of the Bible. The Bible says this. What have you just done? brought a third party into the argument, and now the discussion is going to be about the verse, not what y'all were talking about. And both of you have your opinion as to what that verse means. So the argument starts. You see what I'm saying? You can't argue if you say, I accept. Why? Under UCC law, once you're given something and you accept it, and every piece of paper comes to you as an offer contract, there is nothing that goes on in this country that is not contract. Everything that you do is contract. Whatever you're into is a contract. And I went into federal court and I simply asked them one question: where's the contract? They didn't know what to say. Nobody had ever asked them that. They always argued codes with them. So I told the judge, it was a little more to it than that, but I told him, I said, I want this dismissed with prejudice. Why? These guys have come into your court saying I had a contract with them and they can't produce a contract. I don't owe them anything. And he signed the order that I gave him. The issue is everything is in contract. So why in the world would you not take somebody, if they're offering you a contract? Any of you ever been in business or something where somebody comes and says, hey, you want to sign my contract? Do you ever just argue with them about it and throw the thing back at them? Or would you look at it and you say, hey, we can change this, we can change this, and we can change this? And the guy said, okay, I'll take that. Now what has gone on? He gave you the contract, you accepted, and you made your alterations to the contract, and you gave it back. You returned it to him. Now he has the choice of taking it or adding something else to it. And we've tried this on many contracts where they give them to you, and you just tell them, well, I don't want this in here. Oh, okay, cross it out. They don't know what the contract says themselves. They just something at the form that an attorney's given to them, said, get them to sign that. And this is all it is. But in the UCC law, the instant you accept something, it comes under what is called UCC 3-419, the accommodating party. You become an accommodating party. You now own the document. You're allowed to do with the document whatever you please. And it says you now become holder in due course of the document. That means what time, whatever you want to do with it, once you accept it, that is your document to do with as you please. Now you sign it, or you tell them what you want to adjust the contract with, and you send it back. And when you fire them all, guess what happens? They can't answer, and their contract is null and void. Some of them write back another deal, and they'll say, hey, you must not have got my bill. You simply write across it, accepted, returned to you for closure and discharge in this matter, and the process goes on and on and on. Why? That's all you're saying to them. Why? Hadn't it frustrated you all these years when you knew good and well that you were right in something, that you had not done anything wrong, and yet they were selling you out in the courtroom? I know people have spent millions of dollars on attorneys, and then at the end, the attorneys came and took everything else. Their own attorneys came and took everything else the person had. Hasn't it happened to people? Yeah. You see, when you let the fox in the chicken pen, he's going to eat all eggs. When all eggs are gone, he comes after the chicken. And you always look at attorneys as foxes. They're going to do us chickens no good at all. Think about it. Why do you think someone else is smarter than you are? Why do you think someone else is smarter than you? If you have a medical problem and you got a broken leg, you go to a doctor who learned to put broken legs back together. You don't go for an opinion, you go to get the leg back in place. But when you have something wrong with you, you got a stomach ache, does everybody run to the doctor for a stomach ache? No, they say, what is it they said on television about this doing for stomach aches? I'll go get some of that. You made that determination yourself. This does not ever say. What I'm trying to tell you is that anyone with a title is going to get into your pocketbook. Nobody has a title of nobility. Cannot have a title of nobility, because nobody has ever given them that. The church has more titles of nobility than any place I've ever seen. Nowhere does it ever give them the right to a title of nobility. If they're preaching, they're simply that's a gift. That is not a title. But anyway, I don't want to get off into that. But what I'm telling you is that you have to become your own self. You start questioning. When you're studying, don't study the law. The law will get you in trouble. There are researchers, and researchers do a lot of good, because they run across and all of a sudden they find something. Just like this man found these probate statutes, and it's not. And he said everything you said is exactly right in here. I've never read the probate statutes. I don't have time to read them. But over the years, what I do is, by what happens to people, it starts unlocking things. And I've always been of the opinion that you've seen these signs before that says always question authority. And so I think just about everybody in here has probably been in that category at one time or another. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Because authority is what they're out there trying to say they have. And you should always question authority. And authority really should come from you in the way you treat other people. Once you come to that conclusion, you're going to find yourself not near as mad at everybody going down the highway, because you're going to find out you have the same right to do what they're doing. You're just not doing it at that time. And I know it used to really bother me because you're coming along and everybody's doing 70 miles an hour in 2 lanes, and the inside lane, which is supposed to be going the fastest, it's going 50 miles an hour. And I've come to it, and it's almost 100%. Every time you pass them, they're talking on the phone. And you say, "Yeah, dirty rats, why didn't he go faster?" Well, you see, if I had a cell phone, I used to talk on it till I threw it away. But I wanted a little time to myself, and when I had a cell phone, everybody either called the cell phone at the office or at home. And so I finally just threw it away. I never did understand those things anyway. I'm one of the people that don't really know too much about electronic stuff. And so I hardly knew how to turn it on, Someone showed me how to store a whole lot of numbers in there, and I never knew how to draw the numbers up to find out who it was. And so what you see is this person going along, and they're doing, they're talking on the phone. And when you talk on that phone, I guarantee you, I never could think to drive and talk on the phone at the same time. And I caught myself doing some dumb things, almost running into a truck or whatever. But what I'm saying is that we learn that those people have the right to talk on the phone. It may irritate us, but they have that right to talk on the phone. And so we get to the point when we become free, other people become free. You let them do what they want to do. Didn't say you let them go out and kill somebody if you're there. That's not what I'm talking about. When they harm another person, it's another matter. And that falls into where your venue is, and that's the common law. And we was talking about that today, and the man said, well, what about when you hurt somebody? I said, well, that falls under the common law. And the way they destroyed the common law was, and it's interesting to read, I used to have all those letters that went on between the Pope and King George.